Now, the issue of money in political campaigns is as well as old as politics. With the Supreme Court ruling that corporations now have the same First Amendment rights as individuals and can pour unlimited truckloads of cash into coffers of their preferred candidate, this issue of transparency has become a rallying cry for elected officials who smell a rat. Democratic Bill De Blasio is the New York public advocate. He sent a letter Tuesday to 16 organizations demanding that they come clean about their donors. Bill, thanks for joining us. Really appreciate it. So let's talk about what you're doing. First of all, who are these 16 groups and what do you want them to do?
These groups are in principle nonprofit issue groups. Some are trade associations. But let me give you the numbers. These groups have spent $22 million on elections in the last 5 weeks. Those attack ads you talked about, we want them to come clean. We want to know who's paying for this. You said it's as old as time itself, money in politics. Well, I have the oldest question about so many human interactions. Who's paying for it? And these groups, by and large, have refused to disclose, particularly the corporate contributions. If corporations and whole industries are now participating in campaigns on massive scale, $22 million, you can imagine what that does in certain races. That could be absolutely decisive. We're saying the American people have a right to know who's doing it.
All right. Now, these aren't just liberal liberal or conservative groups, right? There's a mix in there, and you don't really care what the organization's goal is. You just want to know where the money's coming from. Is that right?
That's exactly right. I don't care if they're Democrat, Republican, liberal, conservative, labor, business. We deserve to know what's going on. And what you're seeing at the grassroots in these states where these ads are flooding the airwaves, you're seeing local elected officials. You're seeing people who are consumers and shareholders and companies saying, wait a minute, where's our money going? And what's happening here? The Supreme Court decision opened up a very slippery slope, and one that bluntly could change the nature of our democracy. It's our job to demand disclosure and to say to companies, you don't have to spend this money. Just because the law allows you, it doesn't mean you're obligated. By the way, a number of companies, to their credit, have decided not to go down this road.
But you see, that's interesting. Every indication is that for money spent buying politicians, and I'm keeping it real here, okay, that it's a great investment. They're going to get many dollars back in return, right? That, for the bankers, they get the great loopholes and the deals in the financial reform package. The drug industry made out like bandits. So I get their motivation. Now, if you're a corporation, why should you stop that? If I was a corporation, I might buy a politician too.
Because the public won't stand for it, the shareholders won't stand for it, the consumers won't stand for it. Look what happened with Target Corporation. They got deeply involved in one particular election in Minnesota. They end up with a massive shareholder boycott because people are going to Target to buy a product, not to foster a political action movement by Target. The bottom line is it is a slippery slope. And what we've seen with some of the biggest companies in the country, some of the biggest financial firms and tech firms have said, you know what, we don't want to go down this road because we know the people we depend on to buy our products may not feel comfortable. Our shareholders may not think this is the right course for our company to take.
Bill, you said the critical word there, shareholders. Yep. Because ultimately, who owns these companies?
Well, look, this is where I think the shareholder movement is going to play a big role. Some people say Citizens United, it's such a total decision by the court. Will things ever change again? You know what? It's still democracy. And shareholder rights is one of the elements of this. Shareholders want their companies to stay on a sound strategic path, and they want to know what's going on. They don't want them venturing into reckless political or lobbying efforts. They want them, in fact, making the best product possible and doing well in the market according to the rules. They don't want people gaming the system. You're going to see this coming year more and more shareholder resolutions across companies all across this country demanding disclosure and real limitations, a sense that a company needs to set some rules, some self-imposed rules, and come clean with the people who actually own the company.
Because a lot of the shareholders are pension funds, right?
That's
so
right.
People that have been working throughout the country, whether it's New York, Pennsylvania, wherever it might be, and it's their money that's going into these corporations, and then sometimes the corporation spends money maybe for its own benefit, but a lot of times against the interests of the people who own the company in those pension funds.
There is ample evidence that when companies venture into massive political spending or lobbying spending, it's often counterproductive to the bottom line. And what you see, and I'm on the pension fund board here in New York City, what you see is there's a tremendous IMF study and a University of Minnesota study that looked at this. When you think you can game the system, just think about what you said before. If you buy your way to a certain outcome, maybe you do that. But in fact, it takes the companies away from their strategic mission as firms. That creates instability. And from a pension fund perspective, we want stability. We want a company that's doing its job day in and day out. We don't want a company that's looking for a quick fix. The automobile industry in Detroit tried that for decades. They almost crumbled because of it. They thought they had all the friends they needed in Washington. They stopped making the best product. Now they've started to turn around. Well, from a pension fund perspective, we want companies focused on the bottom line, not political intrigue.
Right, and when you buy politicians or you game the political system, it's anti-competitive. I know a lot of companies want that monopoly, but then it makes them prone to a real competitor. Maybe it's from abroad. So you're right, it ultimately doesn't serve the companies. But because of Citizens United, you're not going here to end the campaign financing, right? I mean, you're not going to saying you can't be a donor. You just want them to disclose it, right?
One bottom line is everyone should disclose. If you want the respect of pension funds, shareholders, consumers, disclose. If you're not willing to disclose, it begs the question, why not? And what are you hiding? The issues have been raised recently about, is there in fact potentially foreign corporate money now in our system? We don't know because we don't have disclosure. The second step, which a number of firms have been willing to take, is voluntarily choose not to go down this road. I guarantee you the public does not want an electoral system dominated by money. They want a public debate, the right kind of debate. They want a level playing field. The companies that actually show restraint will ultimately do better.
All right, New York Public Advocate Bill De Blasio, thank you so much for joining us. We really appreciate it.
Appreciate it.